Hey folks, I'm Chris and I'm your Commander Mechanic, here with a spoiler-filled video. Strixhaven has begun and we are here and hit with a whack of new legendaries in all of our school colors that have opened up all sorts of builds. It's got my brewing gears turning, so I want to take a look at some of our opportunities. Naturally, because the set is divided into color combinations, I'll divide our spoiled legends into schools, starting with Prismari, the School of Art and Expression. This blue-red color combination is all about the elements. These are our art students. Our first new legendary is Zafai, Thunder Conductor. This human shaman is a box legend for the upcoming C21 Commander Precons. The new mechanic on Zafai is Magecraft, which we'll see in the main set too. It wants us to be casting and copying spells, giving us big value for slinging. In this case, the bigger the spell, the better the effect from Zafai. We'll always scry one no matter the size of the spell we cast, but as that spell's mana value increases, we get more goodies. When we cast a spell of 5 or greater, we make a 4/4 elemental. And if we cast a spell of mana value 10 or greater, we blast a random opponent for 10 damage right to the face. Blammo! Just like that. Zafai is reminiscent of a few Storm commanders we've seen in these colors in the past, like Mizzix of the Ismagnus, Jorien Ruin Diver, and even Calamax the Stormsire in Temur colors. Zafai would fit right at home in the 99 of any of these decks, and make a great include in certain coin-flipping decks that star Krark the Thumbless and Sakashima the Imposter. But helming a deck would be a little different. For Zafai, early game value is very important, but so is flexibility. X spells let you choose what kind of value you're getting, and anything letting you cast or copy spells without paying their mana costs would be slam dunks. Mizzix's Mastery or Electro Dominance can net you multiple triggers, and Finale of Promise is massive value, just ridiculous. These X spells can instantly make you an army and dome opponents for 10 damage with a single cast. But the real star would be Thousand Year Storm or Swarm Intelligence. These double, or more, on your trigger value from Zafai, not to mention actual cards with Storm like Mind's Desire, or copied spells from an Isochron Scepter. Expect Magecraft to be very powerful in our format. Our second spoiled Prismari legend is an MDFC legend, giving us 2 options to work with. It's our Prismari Deans, Uvilda, Dean of Perfection, and Nasari, Dean of Expression. Flexible commanders are a great boon as it lets you determine what aspect of them you need at the time, but may not always be what you need when you need them. In my opinion, it's always better to have an MDFC commander like these as part of your game plan, but not your central game plan. Our first side is Uvilda, a 3-mana Djinn wizard who gives us pseudo suspend. Unlike real suspend, we'll have to pay for the majority of the spell, only being discounted by 4. That prevents this from being just another version of Joyra of the Gitu, but can also let us cast something like an extra turn spell, Temporal Manipulation, Time Warp, or Karn's Temporal Sundering for only 2 mana. It's also infinitely better with X casting cost spells, adding 4 mana into the X immediately. This helps us play with flexible casting cost cards very, very easily. Nasari, on the other hand, is a 5 mana value 4/4 Efreet Shaman that gives us a stolen strategy style effect each turn. This can be huge card advantage, but it doesn't stop there. Whenever we cast a card from exile, be it Suspend, Impulsively Drawn, or Foretold, we put a +1/+1 counter on Nasari. This can quickly make our commander pretty bulky and able to survive most combat encounters. So, card advantage and gets punchy? Fantastic! What happens when these spells allow us to get more punchy though? Casting a Slip Through Space, Downhill Charge, or Gravitic Punch from exile seems like a good way to get the most out of being able to have a bulky spellcasting commander. But, as mentioned, the two sides don't necessarily play well together. So keep that in mind. Same coin, different sides. Our next school of magic is Quandrix. This blue-green color combo is all about growth, theory, and how it applies to the world. Think golden spiral, Fibonacci sequence, and how math is applied to the natural world. Our first Quandrix legendary is the C21 box legend, the duo of Ardix and Nev, twin casters. Unlike some of the others on this list, these two are not an MDFC, but are two creatures on one card. For 4 mana, we get this 2/2 Merfolk Wizard that has a lot going on in the text box. First, we get a glimpse of Ward, which is the new keyworded version of making spells and abilities your opponents cast that target a card more expensive. If this term becomes evergreen, we can expect to see it a lot more often. But there's a really good reason you want to ward this legendary creature. And that's that it's a token doubler. That's right, alongside Parallel Lives and Doubling Season, Ardix and Nev double up on any tokens you make. Be those treasures, frogs, or beasts, we get twice as many. This commander is a fantastic new utility in the command zone. We've seen counter doublers in the command zone like with Pier and Toothy or the new Vorinclex, but not a cost-free token doubler. Girid and Tristani allow us to populate, but that either costs mana or requires an attack. Ardix and Nev is static, entirely free, and can get nutty. Naturally, green has a lot of ways to make tokens, from plants to beasts to elementals, so what does the Quandrix combo get us? Well, true to form, I immediately wonder what kind of tokens we can make copies of. Saheeli's Artistry or Progenitor Mimic give us all kinds of crazy things to do, making us multiple copies of artifacts or creatures. But hey, what if we make a non-legendary version of Ardix and Nev, and then make copies of that? Spark Double or Sakashima of 1,000 Faces, then a token copy of creatures we control? We'd spiral out of control. Some might say golden spiral out of control. I can't wait. It sounds right up my alley. Now, speaking of my alley, we have our Quandrix Deans. This MDFC legendary features Kian, Dean of Substance, and Imbraham, Dean of Theory. Kian is a 3-mana 2/2 elf druid that has a tap ability to either put cards we own from the top of our library into exile with a study counter on them, or put lands into our hand. Seems great with some top deck manipulation like a Sensei's Divining Top or even a Sylvan Library. But her other activated ability, which doesn't require tapping, makes us a fractal creature token with counters on them. Hey, making tokens and putting counters on things, that seems pretty familiar to green, right? So at a base, Kian gives us some draw fixing and an outlet for lots of mana. Not bad for a single body for 3 mana. But it doesn't stop there. Imbraham is a 4-mana bird wizard and a 3/3 flyer. But Imbraham has an ability to pay 2 blue mana and X, and tap, to exile X cards from the top of our library with study counters on them. Then we get to choose one of those cards and put them back to our hand. Wait, what? So that means with enough mana, we could exile our entire library, choose, say, a Thassa's Oracle from among them, and put it into our hand. So Imbraham plus infinite mana minus summoning sickness equals win? That sounds like a crazy equation to me. Let's include the classics of Lightning Greaves and Swiftfoot Boots to give haste, maybe Concordant Crossroads if we're feeling ambitious, and because both of our commanders have tap abilities. 1,000-Year Elixir works really well here too. And infinite mana is maybe the easiest part in these colors. Get a creature that taps for multiple mana, like a Bloom Tender for instance, or an Incubation Druid, slap an untap effect on them like a Freed from the Real or a Pemin's Aura, and you're going infinite. We could also include plenty of Mana Dorks and Mana Rocks, along with Isochron Scepter and Dramatic Reversal for some redundancy. Add in Laboratory Maniac and Jace Wielder of Mysteries as redundancy for Thassa's Oracle. Sounds like we've got a pretty strong showing here already. Leave it to Quandrix to start breaking things. Next up is Lorehold. This red-white combo is a mix of anthropology and archaeology, aiming to get their hands a little dirty with some practical learning. And our first legendary is our C21 Precon box legendary, Osgir the Reconstructor. This 4-mana Giant Artificer is a 4/4 with Vigilance, letting us know already he's getting rough and tumble. But when we start looking at these abilities, well, things get really dialed into ways that we can start breaking. Osgir is not only combat focused, giving us a way to sacrifice artifacts to pump a creature, but then gives us ways to reanimate and double artifacts from our graveyard. This can get us a few pretty amazing benefits, ranging from ramp options via making a few soul rings, as they come in untapped, through to getting us wild utility with multiple Sun Forgers, multiple Aetherflux reservoirs, or more. Worst case scenario, we can use this to make a Voltron strategy even more effective. Did your Sword of Feast and Famine get destroyed? Cool, now you can have 2. Was one set of Lightning Greaves too much for the table to handle? That's a shame that there's now twice as many to deal with. And working with Red's rummaging effects, including that of the new Learn mechanic, we can pick and choose what goes into the yard. We can discard an Ancient Den or a Darksteel Citadel to make 2 lands out of our graveyard. That's Lorehold Ramp, baby! I can see a lot of interesting options included in this deck, similar to a shell for Felden of the Third Path. Lots of ways to dump artifacts and artifact creatures into the bin, then double them up. Double Wormcoil Engines, double Combustible Gear Hulks, and double Mere Battlespheres. All possible with Osgir at the helm. Now, our Lorehold Deans are an interesting dichotomy. It's Plarg, Dean of Chaos, and Augusta, Dean of Order. Plarg is a 2/2 Orc Shaman for 2 mana. Nice and efficient, with a tap ability that lets us rummage. His secondary tap ability, however, allows us to pay 5, tap, and reveal a non-legendary, non-land card with mana value 3 or less, and cast it without paying its cost. Hey, free spells are never broken, right? Well, if we stack our deck, we could probably pull off some pretty broken things. Include only legendary spells, or spells with a mana value greater than 4, to ensure we hit exactly what we want to hit. I don't know if I'd build that, but I'm sure someone will find a way to break it. After all, they broke Tybalt's trickery. The other half of our Lorehold Deans is Augusta, a 3-mana 1/3 human cleric that pumps our creatures in different ways. Tapped creatures getting punchier and untapped creatures getting bulkier. The more interesting part is that whenever you attack, not Augusta, just you as the player, you can untap each creature you control, then tap those creatures again if you'd like. This can really help us abuse tap abilities, doubling up on them, getting 2 activations from a Mother of Runes, a Stoneforge Mystic, or a Weathered Wayfarer. And these are just the options in white. Looking at red, we could be getting additional Goblin Welder activations, Kiki-Jiki Mirror Breaker activations, or Felden of the Third Path activations. I'm sure that there's more ways we can really exploit it, and ramp with mana dorks too. Palladium Mirror netting us 2 extra mana each turn is nothing to shrug at. Our next school is Witherbloom. This green-black combination are our botanists, our zoologists, and our chemists. These overgrown goths are the kids you'd normally find smoking behind the school, and that's fine with them. Our first legendary is our C21 box legend, and it's Willow Dusk, Essence Seer. This 3-mana 3/3 Dryad Druid has an interesting tap ability. For 1 mana, at sorcery speed, we can put +1/+1 counters on another target creature we control equal to the amount of life we've lost or gained this turn, whichever is greater. This immediately plays into some important themes, like we've seen with Rayhan, Last of the Abzan, or Mazarek, Crawl Death Priest. Counters matter. But it also gives us a way to turn life gain from aristocrat staples like Blood Artist or Zulaport Cutthroat into ways to go taller. With cards that allow us to gain or pay massive amounts of life, this can be very profitable for us. Cards like Sangromancer, or Exquisite Blood, or Grey Merchant of Asphodel can allow us to make a lot of life in a single turn. Or, on the other hand, we could pay a lot of life to a Necropotence, or an Ad Nauseam, or a Bolas's Citadel, in order to pump one of our creatures to go in for a kill. Green is also the home to counter doublers like Doubling Season and the new Vorinclex, so we have a lot to work with for volume of counters. But what payoffs should we have? Well, Iridescent Hornbeetle can turn those counters into insects as well, giving us an army at the end of our turns. Michaeloth can do much the same thing, giving us a Saproling army on our upkeeps. And if we dump these counters onto a Forgotten Ancient, we can then distribute them onto any of our creatures when it comes around to our turns again. Very slick. Overall, I think we'll see Willow Dusk in the 99 more than at the helm of decks, but I could be pretty surprised. She seems like a great synergy piece without dictating the exact direction of a deck. I look forward to seeing her in action. Now let's meet our Witherbloom Deans, Valentine, Dean of the Vein, and Lisette, Dean of the Root. Valentine is a very economically costed 1/1 vampire warlock with menace and lifelink. Great value already. But also has a triggered ability whenever an opponent's creature would die, it gets exiled, similar to Anafenza the Foremost. This goes a step further though, and lets you pay 2 whenever an opponent's creature is exiled or dies, making a 1/1 green and black pest creature token that gains you life when it dies. Wow, could they fit more abilities on a 1/1 for 1? Talk about value. With Ashnod's Altar and Grave Pact, you can really go nuts and machine gun down all opponents' boards very quickly. This can be a soft lock, preventing your opponents from ever sticking a creature on the board, so just beware before busting it out in a playgroup. Lisette is a 4/4 human druid for 4 mana that triggers on life gain, allowing you to pay 1 and put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Right, and those creatures gain trample too. Talk about a closer. 1 mana and 1 life means a micro overrun effect, and if you're getting multiple instances of life gain, say from an aristocrat effect like Blood Artist, or from creatures entering the battlefield with an Essence Warden, you can get multiple counters. Heck, throw in something that gains life on demand like a Scavenging Ooze, and you can easily have a Craterhoof Behemoth for a fraction of the cost. Life Gift is another good option, allowing you to pay 1 whenever a land enters the battlefield to pump the squad. I think this flip commander is easily one of the better ones that can lead a deck, with synergies on both sides. I'm eager to do a full build here. Now our last school, and certainly not the least, is the one I belong to, the Silver Quill. These eloquent and stylish students have tongues the color of their namesake and will talk circles around you with their inky magics. Our C21 box legendary is Brina the Demagogue. This 3-mana 1/3 flying bird warlock is a politically savvy commander, encouraging your opponents to attack anyone but you like an Edric, Spymaster of Trest. If they do, they're rewarded by drawing a card, and allowing you to put 2 +1/+1 counters on a creature you control. Even on their own, Brina is a threat. The moment opponents start squabbling over who to attack, you can make your creatures threatening, even putting counters on Brina themselves. In 1 turn cycle, Brina can become a terrifying 7/9 flyer should all 3 opponents attack somewhere else. So why don't we build around encouraging them to do that? Pillow Fort immediately comes to mind. If the card draw wasn't incentive enough, let's make sure no one can attack you. Ghostly Prison, Norn's Annex, and Sphere of Safety distinctively disincentivize attacking you, but leave your opponents wide open. No Mercy is another great way to say anywhere but here. Also note that this counter ability doesn't target, so giving Brina Shroud with Lightning Greaves means you can still get beefy. Overall, I like this in the right deck. Definitely one with political motivations. Plead your case to your opponents and distract them with gifts while you plot your way to take them all out subtly. Now, on the flip side of this, are our MDFC Deans of Silverquill. Shale, Dean of Radiance, and Embrose, Dean of Shadow. First, Shale is a 1/1 bird cleric with flying and vigilance for only 2 mana, a great rate, and has a tap ability to put a counter on each creature you control that entered the battlefield this turn, much like an Oran-Reef the Vastwood. Very clearly, this is a great addition to any go-wise strategy that can crank out multiple creatures in a single turn. A Secure the Waste followed by a tap can double the size of your army in a heartbeat. An active Luminarch's Ascension can pump out half a dozen angels and then make them 1 power bigger. Not a bad proposition. Embrose, on the other hand, is a 4/4 human warlock for 4 mana and is a harsh teacher. With a tap ability that allows us to put a +1/+1 counter on a creature we control and hope it survives taking the 2 damage this ability also does to it. But wait, there's more. Whenever a creature we control with a +1/+1 counter on it dies, we get to draw a card. So surviving these harsh lessons isn't always a prerequisite. I immediately think of what we can do that wants creatures with counters on it to be in play or die. In this case, I think modular creatures like Arcbound Worker and Arcbound Ravager. We could have Embrose head up an artifact creature heavy list with Steel Overseer in it to ensure that whenever an artifact creature we control dies, we get these benefits. Plenty of lists will want this in the 99, of course. Nikara and Yonic, Gave, Guru of Spores, and Rayhan with a white partner like a Shy. All great options that are looking for either of our Deans. Now, I left Silverquill to the end specifically for one reason, and that's because we had another legend spoiled for them. And this one's an Elder Dragon. That's right, we have details on Shadrix Silverquill, founder of the Silverquill School of Magic. This 5-mana 2/5 Elder Dragon has flying and double strike, but also has a triggered ability at the beginning of combat on your turn. So it does something the turn that it comes out, whether it's attacking or not. Or rather, I should say it does 2 things. Shadrix has a mini command staple to him, and note that each mode chosen must target a different player. So you get a boon, but can also curry favor with an opponent. Very political, very Silverquill. This does make Shadrix a lot more versatile in our format as opposed to 1v1, so let's see what these abilities are. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you get to choose 2 of the following. Target player creates a 2/1 white and black Inkling with flying. Target player draws a card and loses 1 life. Or target player puts a +1/+1 counter on each creature they control. All of these are great abilities and have very circumstantial uses. Naturally, any of these can be valuable to us as the Shadrix player, but you can also bribe opponents by giving them flying blockers, letting them draw a card, or pump their meager boards. We could also choose a player with 0 creatures to put a counter on each creature they control. That seems like a real best case scenario. I'd be looking forward to putting lots of counters on Shadrix as double strike gets double the usefulness out of them. Voltron, counters, go wide, this Elder Dragon can teach us a thing or two for sure. Pairing up Shadrix with Felidar Retreat would get out of control pretty quickly with this counter ability. But giving ourselves token creature fodder every turn can be useful too. Fuel an Aristocrat strategy, or just give us more bodies to play around with. We could even combo this with a Cathar's Crusade to essentially get both the benefits of the counters on each creature we control and an additional creature, all in one move. Altogether, I'm really impressed with everything that's been spoiled so far. Really great pieces that can lead to brand new archetypes or fit within the 99 of existing builds. It's looking like Strixhaven is going to be an incredible set for us as Commander players. Let me know which one of the spoiled legends you're most excited for, and which of these you'd like to see me brew on the channel. We'll do a full deck build with a full list of your choice coming up soon. But as always, folks, stay tuned, good luck, and have fun.